Don't let your good be evil spoken of. This is one of those things that I heard when I went to church a lot. And my thoughts about that experience will be for another episode at another time, but I always heard, don't let your good be evil spoken of. Now, when you first hear it, that can be like, what? What in the literal world is anybody talking about when they say that phrase? So I'm going to give you an example, a story, if you will. And it took place when I was 15. At this point in time, my dad and I, we kind of were on our own in a really nice house in a small town in the middle of the woods. And my dad had a mother, of course. I mean, most of us around here have a mother involved at some point. But she was a real special lady. She's dead now, so I'm not worried at all that she is going to hear the things I'm about to talk about. But I liked my grandmother, my dad's mom, until I was about 10. She had this thing where when kids hit the double-digit ages, they were not really worth her time anymore. They were a nuisance. They were a hindrance. I don't understand it. It has happened to every child in my family. But she was just dreadful. Like, when you would look at her, like, there are photos of her where she's, like, incapable of smiling. Not even the fake smile. And when she tried to smile and she showed her teeth, it was more like looking at a wild animal in the woods. This woman was not a nice woman. Okay? And she took advantage of my dad in so many ways. But anyway, 15, my dad and I are on my own, and Grandma's coming to visit. And she's coming to stay at our house, and I don't really know why. We lived in a town where there is literally not even a chain restaurant. If you want to go to the Olive Garden, it is a 45-minute drive. The nearest gas station is 10 minutes. The nearest Publix is half an hour. And this woman came into my house to visit. Nothing. There's nothing for her to do except sit in my house. All right, so she's here, and we are all, like, walking on eggshells, just trying to, whatever. And one weekend, I guess it was during the week, my dad had said that I could have some friends over. And so me and my friends went in my room, and we curled up on my bed and put a movie on, because I had my own TV, and we watched a movie. And it was a grand old time. There were 3 of us. Grand old time. And we were just laughing. It was a comedy, so we were being loud and obnoxious, most likely. And all of a sudden, my grandmother knocks on the door. And she shouts at me. She's like, "What is going on here?" And I'm just kind of dumbfounded. So I'm like, we're watching a movie. And she did not believe me. I don't know what she thought was happening, but she knew that whatever she thought I was doing was not good. So she's like, "Well, I think your friends need to leave." Okay, I was not a nice teenager. I did not respond in the appropriate way. So I looked at her and said, "You're not my dad. And you don't live here." And my dad said I could have my friends over. My friends aren't leaving. And I can see in the corner of my eye, my friends are like all awkward, and they're like, "Dude, it's fine. We can just go. It's not a big deal. We can get out of here." And I said, "No, you're staying. Stay. Turn the movie back on. We are having a good time." And my grandmother's like, "No, they're leaving." And I said, "No, they're not." I think at this point, my friends are like sneaking out behind me, trying to act like they are not part of this conversation. I don't remember how my friends left, but I knew eventually they weren't there. Now, at this time, you have to imagine, and if you know me, this is probably hard to imagine. I was about the same height, 5'5", but I was a skinny, lanky thing, and it took up no space in the world. My grandmother was 3 feet tall and 3 feet wide and weighed about 642 pounds. She had 95 chins, and when she got angry, all of the parts of her body, all the skin, all the necks, everything, the cheeks are shaken, everything's shaken, and it's very much like watching a waterbed that is agitated. Okay, and she is just starting to shout at me and saying, I know that you're not doing anything good and that you must be. I'm like, we are watching a movie. Literally all we were doing. And I swear to you, that is all we were watching a movie. And she is like, I'm going to tell your father about that. I said, tell my father about this. Please call him up and tell him I was watching it. So I am getting in a verbal argument with a 60-year-old walrus about whether or not I'm watching a movie. And I shouldn't have. I should have just kept my mouth shut. That would have been the smart thing to do. But when you're dealing with my grandmother, keeping your mouth shut is not something that's easy to come by. Okay, but she just kept going. And I said, so I tried to remove myself from the situation because I knew that I was going to get even more viscerally angry. I knew that at some point I was going to snap. It was going to happen. I was going to lose my mind on little walrus lady who's shaking about. Okay, so I walk out of the house. I ain't got nowhere to go. We live literally a mile from the next house. So I'm just kind of walking in the yard, walking around the edge of the property near the trees, and I'm trying to take some deep breaths. I'm trying to calm myself down, but I'm 15, I'm angry, and there is a wild animal guarding my house, accusing me of doing something wrong when I had done nothing wrong. And she came out the door. And, I mean, first of all, I'm impressed she got through the doorway, let's be real. But she came out that door and she started running. I don't think she had run since 1942, and she was running after me. Now, if you have not seen a large person, a large animal who is angry, just downright, like if this were a lion and the lion were after an antelope, that antelope would have just died on its own to avoid the type of murder that was about to happen. This woman is coming flying out of the house. All of her necks are going in the breeze. The arm flaps are going. It's amazing she didn't take off right. And she's just coming at me. And she grabs, like she catches me. I don't know how she did it to this day. She grabs me by the shirt collar and she raises that fist way up in the air. And at some point I just gave up and I said, do it. I dare you. Do it. It's like Emperor Palpatine. Just do it. Do it. And right as her fist starts to move, my dad's truck comes in the yard. And it was like somebody had just put a spotlight on her. And she scurried into the house. And the next thing I knew, the next day, I think, she was on a plane back to Detroit. And I don't think she ever visited our house again. Now, we went up to Michigan and we visited her there, but I don't think she ever came to visit us in Florida again, and I certainly didn't spend much time with her after that. She's done similar things to all of the kids in my family. All of my cousins have had similar experiences. She was just downright crazy. She legitimately, as we discovered later in life, she had some issues to contend with that honestly required some medication. So the point of the story was, at the top we said, don't let your good be evil spoken of. I didn't do anything wrong in this situation. I was watching a movie with some friends in my room. But somehow she misinterpreted that situation. And this is an extreme and not totally fitting story for this thought, but I think it's really important as we move through our lives that we make sure whatever it is we are doing whatever it is we are participating in, that it can be perceived in the best possible light from everybody involved. That our good is not evil spoken of. To not have our good intentions ruined by somebody else's misinterpretation. Does that put too much responsibility on us as the person doing the good? Maybe. Should people be better and should people recognize our intentions? Sure, in an ideal world, but we're not living in an ideal world. Okay, so we have to do our best to make sure that people understand the good we are doing. It kind of comes back to Robin Hood, right? They say he robbed from the poor, or robbed from the poor. They're poor. How do you rob from the poor? He robbed from the rich to give to the poor. He was trying to do something good and making sure that people in poverty had what they needed. But the people on the other side of that were getting robbed. They were getting stolen from. And so his good intentions were always marred by those people's perceptions of how he was handling the situation. It's hard to make the right decision. It is hard to make a decision to do good and to do it in a way that everyone can kind of get behind. And sometimes it's downright not possible. You will not always be successful at this when you try to do it. But if you're trying, and if you're really pursuing this idea of not letting your personal good be evil spoken of, you'll succeed well enough. Okay? It's not about perfection. Nothing, and we put so much emphasis on perfection in this world. The perfect things to do, the perfect grades, the perfect assignment completion, the perfect body type. No, we're not talking in perfections. Okay, life is not it one way or the other. It is a pendulum. It is all the things that happen between 2 points. So you do the best you can to not let your good be evil spoken of. You set the situation up as best you can. But when it's not perfect, when it doesn't go according to plan, you have to be okay. You also have to understand that while you are trying your best to control the situation, you are working with other human beings, and other human beings can't be controlled like that. You can't orchestrate their every movement. Okay, like if you're getting on a horse, for example, and you get on the horse and you have the reins and you think you have control of that animal, the truth is at no point do you ever have control of the horse. It's an illusion. You are working in partnership with that horse, but if that horse doesn't want you riding, you're not riding. That horse will take you off its back in a heartbeat. It's partnership. And you have to recognize that you are not responsible for controlling other people. You do the best you can to set up the situation so your good is not evil spoken of, but you can't control everything. You do the best you can do in your situation with whatever you have available. And you do your best to make sure that everybody sees it's your best. But if they refuse to see it, if they are my walrus grandmother, there's no control in them. And you can't let that get to you. You can't let that stop your good. So there's a lot of layers to this. Yeah, don't let your good be evil spoken of. It's a good thing to follow. But there are so many elements and so many layers, and you have to accept you can't control it all. You have to be okay with that. But you can control yourself. You can take care of yourself. You can make decisions that help you and make you better. Don't worry about everything else. Just take care of you. And don't let your good be evil spoken of.